podcast only for real estate.
Yeah.
People do talk about real estate in their podcast, but not just for real estate.
Yeah.
Plots in Panvel 10 years ago, you'd be sitting with Hiranandani right now and making sales. And cycling that money, almost 10x my money in that year. It's really the wild west of real estate. Just kind of got obsessed with like trees and like air and like horses and just like being in open spaces.
So let's assume you have 2-3 farmhouses in Alibaug, right?
Me? No, I wish. That's the dream. I've sold land on my DMs, which is absurd. We've close to 800 acres with us. Here's 10 crores. Here's 20 crores. Find me land that I want to invest in.
Let's assume it's become like a luxury, right? Earlier the things were long back, we used to have open lands, less buildings and everything. Now that only has turned into luxury.
Yeah.
So it's like owning that is a luxury, right?
We don't have a Jugyah to make that. Getting your house built by actual robots sounds crazy, but it's gonna happen. You've got to love what you do, and you've got to never give up.
Welcome back to episode 2 of the Real Estate Jam. So today we have a very nice guest coming in. He is Mr. Mihir Lunia, who's the founder of Brego Lands, and today we're going to understand a lot about real estate land development and the opportunities when it comes to land. I am very excited. I hope you are too. So let's dive in. Hi Mihir. So firstly, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Hi.
We're very excited for this. I hope you are too.
Yeah.
So let's get at it. Let's talk about your journey and how did you start Brego Lands and how do you go about it? What inspired you? Everything. Tell us everything.
Sure. Brego Land was, I didn't really start thinking that I wanted to start a company in real estate. I'd already started another business before. It was more kind of personal. I think I've spent a lot of my childhood on my dad's farm, and my cousins used to rescue a lot of horses and dogs and things like that. And I grew up in a typical South Bombay kind of bubbled life, and spending a lot of time in those villages kind of was my first experience as a kid. I think really connecting with people from totally different backgrounds, right? And I've always loved nature. Lord of the Rings is my favorite book, so I kind of read that there. And just kind of got obsessed with like trees and like air and like horses and just like being in open spaces. And that's always stayed with me. I think fast forward later on into my life, I wanted to, you typically start your career, you make investments. So I bought some land when I started working, just as an investment. And 2020 happened, COVID, and everything was down, as you know, and I had time on my hands. So because I can't sit still, I ended up just selling, buying, selling, and cycling that money, almost 10x my money in that year. And I just realized how unorganized land is, right? In our country, it's really the wild west of real estate. And when I thought about the value that I could add in real estate, I was like, okay, land is the salt of the industry. And, it's one of those things that's never going to go out of demand. In land, it's like information asymmetry and a complete lack of trust because you're not even dealing with professional white-collared folks. I think that's a massive gap, right? So that's what we look to do and address with Brego Land. We do two things. We're land developers and aggregators. When I say developers, we buy our own land and do developments like any other developer. We're focused on doing plotted developments only. Second is we can't own all the land in the world, unfortunately. So we act as a platform and help farmers, other resellers sell their land. So we aggregate that, put that on the platform, just like how you all do, and make that transactable.
So how is it going? Like, do you love, absolutely love it? Of course, we understood that you love it, but how is it going in with the market change, with the trends in the market?
So we're only in where I think we got formalized as a company about a year and a half ago. Right? Then we was just doing transactions and trying different things. We started off as a fractional investment company. I wanted to bring down the cost of entering land. We raised a couple of, two funds where people could invest with as little as 5 lakhs. We would come in as the asset manager. In fact, we sold those lands, we returned capital to investors. I think we give them like a 20% IRR in about 8-9 months. So you can do that in land, right? But what happened through that is we had a lot of people saying, Mihir, forget your 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs here. Here's 10 crores, here's 20 crores, find me land that I want to invest in. When we started off, my hypothesis was that rich people and the B2B market, so developers and people in hospitality and whatnot are already going to have this figured out, but they do not. It's a huge pain point for them. To answer your previous question, we're only in one pin code. We're just in Alibaug.
Yeah.
I think that's allowed us to focus and really become extremely strong there. We've close to 800 acres with us in Alibaug,
that's
from
a lot.
as little as like half an acre up to about 200 acres. So, that's really what we've been up to. From fractional to, I guess you could say we're developers.
So let's assume you have 2-3 farmhouses in Alibaug, right? For yourself.
Me? No, I wish. That's the dream. That's the dream.
Okay, so now that we spoke about investing in lands, can you give us your top 3 picks of emerging areas around Mumbai that you believe have high potential for investment?
Honestly, just draw a 3-hour radius around Mumbai. I think the same thing. Beyond that, you should think about where you have a connection to the place, where you know people, where you can establish trust. But there's 2 developments, the Samruddhi Highway on the western side, and look out for that Karanjia Bridge that's going to connect straight from Chirle to Revas. I think those 2 developments, land around there is huge.
Yeah.
I think you'll have already seen because you'll have so specific in Bombay, you'll have seen how the coastal road is going to change connectivity, how Atal Setu moving out of the city is going to become so much easier. The government has plans to open up waterways. Those are 2 areas. To answer your question very specifically, Alibaug, of course, I'm quite biased here, but the data will show you otherwise. It's just beginning. Karjat and Khapoli, these 3 areas will do really, really well. Panvel, again, you've seen how
prices are going up.
Prices are going up, but like 10 years ago, Panvel goes down, right?
Yeah.
So imagine having bought plots in Panvel 10 years ago. You'd be sitting with Hiranandani right now and making sales.
We're going to do that hopefully
Exactly.
soon. Okay, you kind of answered the next question I was going to ask about the connectivity. So like in global markets, let's say US and where people take jobs way far because the connectivity is so good, the infrastructure is so good, and now the Atal Setu Bridge, like you mentioned, everything is coming up. So do you think like in the coming years, people are actually full-time going to buy homes and live, let's say in Alibaug and Karjat and travel all the way?
It's already happening. One of my wife's like really good friends and her husband, they're my age, early 30s, and they run full-time jobs, really smart. Both of them are really smart people, and very productive, working completely out of Alibaug. It's already happening in very, very niche ways.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think to answer your question, I would say at least 20% of my office comes from Karjat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's...
So it's... I think there's stories that are unfolding since the beginning of time.
Mumbai in specific, people are okay with traveling. Like, apart from Bombay, I've not seen people who are so okay with traveling.
Because you got to pay your bills to survive in this city. So, you have no option.
Yeah. So when you said the COVID wave came, right? So do you think after the pandemic, people have become more open to having like open spaces, houses, and then buying plots and making it to a, holiday home so that they can go, or this?
I think it was a trigger point. More people just kind of realized that there's going to be more to life, and that, oh shit, suddenly like we can, because no one would have thought that, something like COVID would have happened. I think that definitely triggered, something that was always underlying in people, and that does remain. People do have a desire to. It's actually quite funny because you want to get back to the things that you always had. Like you want clean air, you want open spaces and gardens to walk in. You want time with family and friends in a private space. Now, whether that is rented, whether that is owned is secondary. The point is that there's demand for those end experiences. For us, that supports our hypothesis because land, right? Like what we're sitting on is,
Yeah. Exactly.
there were once trees here.
Yeah. It's going back to where we came from.
Yeah, I think that's how we move as humans.
Yeah. So, according to you, like we know you have a bias for Alibaug, but like consumer perspective, where do you think people are more leaning towards now? Let's say Alibaug, Karjat, or I think people are trying to get villas in Goa as well. Like, you know, they have a holiday home.
Goa's
theory
become
going
like
on.
a city. It's crazy, right? I think it's not a second home destination anymore. It's become a primary home. Say you finish this like podcast and you go home. You're gonna watch TV, talk to your family, talk to your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. If you have kids, put them to bed, go to sleep. I think that how mundane life is in a city is what drives
People
sales
yeah.
for people that can afford it. And I think for us, I don't know if I'm rambling, but I think for us, we're not just selling an end-use product, right? We're selling something that doubles up as land is extremely versatile.
Yes.
So there's an investment thesis behind land, there's an end-use thesis behind land, and that really opens up the market for us. And I think people have typically stayed away from land as an asset class because they're scared, and there's very few established players to trust. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll trust you all now. So
Yeah.
that'll be great.
Yeah, for sure.
So now, like, let's assume it's become like a luxury, right? Earlier the things were long back, we used to have open lands, less buildings and everything. Now that only has turned into luxury.
Yeah.
So it's like owning that is a luxury right now.
Yeah.
So how things like take a turn.
It's like horses, right? Like earlier it was commonplace. Today, only rich people
Can have
own
it's
horses.
like a symbol.
It's a luxury.
Yeah. So the prices of properties have already 4x in the coastal areas now, right? So do you think like Alibaug, Karjat and everything in the coming market, in the coming trends, they're going to go up and up and upwards only? Or do you
You
think
do real estate in Bombay, right? So over the last 5-10 years, have prices 4x'd, 3x'd, 2x'd. They have. Is demand going to stop?
No.
Fundamentally, no.
But do you think it's going to shift to some other, for example, now that Alibaug is at the, let's say, center of attention, do you think once it shifts to Karjat, so that's going to like...
I don't think we're even close to the cusp of where these markets are going to reach. And I mean that for a lot of peripheral pin codes around Mumbai. The future of a lot of these areas is going to be high rises, right? And you'll start seeing that.
Like they'll move towards residential and...
They'll move towards residential.
Yeah.
Eventually that will happen. And the reason that these places are, prices have increased so much is there's 3 things, right? You will see a lot of land physically, but on one side, at least with Alibaug, you've got the coast, so a lot of land gets eaten up with CRZ.
Yeah.
On the other side, you've got a lot of hills and stuff like that, so a lot of that land is designated as forest, which you can't purchase. And then there's a lot of land that's simply locked because of a lack of access. That is massive.
Yeah.
So the actual transactable, saleable, virgin land is not that much. And people typically, they have a certain mindset, they want to be in certain areas. So that's what drives prices, it's supply and demand. You and I can't argue about that. Will it continue? Yes, because that demand for land will become B2B demand, which will turn into demand for apartments, which will turn into demand for commercial spaces and just
it'll become a city in itself again.
The long term of it is yes, that's what's going to happen.
That's it. So if you had to let's say when we purchase a land, so what do you think a consumer should have in mind? Like let's say 3 topmost priority things that they should keep in mind before purchasing it, so that they don't regret it or they don't get caught with some documentation and all of that issues.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 things they should always have in mind before going to purchase a land?
Yeah, so I might give you a little more than 3 because it's critical. I think obviously clean paperwork is the obvious statement. I think people sometimes don't even know what to look for You need to really get into like past mutations, study that, get the right set of NOCs. It's really a pain, a real pain. So I think that's one area to really focus on. The second is access. So make sure that you have very, very clean either road touch access, or if you've buying something off the main road, then you've got a registered right of way, which is extremely important. Third, of course, is water, and making sure that you've plenty of it. What happens is groundwater gets depleted in certain places and you're done. And the fourth is essentially a very, very clean, clear, structured boundary. If you have these four things, you're good, most of the time. And you'd be surprised how many times people buy stuff without knowing or without checking. These four basic elements, right? When my advice to people is always structure these four things into your transaction. So before you actually register your sales deed and things like that. Because here you're dealing with farmers. It's not, we don't have a Jugyah to make that, happen for most people. And that's why Jugyah exists here, and that's why we exist there.
Yeah, that's great. So let's now change gears and talk about Mumbai's real estate landscape, because we're from Bombay, so.
I think here you're going to have to do the talking. I'm going to listen.
No, we want to hear your perspective. We want to see how people see it. Because you know real estate. You've closely been related to real estate, even if it's land. Because the buildings are built on land.
Yeah, it is.
So what are your, let's say, there are a lot of real estate developers, right? Which one in Bombay is your favorite? Like, let's say with residential properties.
Is that a trick question?
No. We're just trying to understand, because we have a follow-up question after that. So
I think what the Lodhas have done is insane. I haven't seen anyone be that aggressive at all. It's pretty crazy. The
proper
scale
luxuries
that they've... No, I think they've been across price points, right? From their journey from when they started. They're always offering something new. It's always, they really want to be the best. They really want to be number one. They're very, very focused on their brand. They're very, very strong distribution. I think what they've done is really something special.
So with land, I wanted to ask you, so like with us, especially in India, there's a Vastu trend, right? People want to buy homes and lands according to Vastu. So do you think it's going to stay for the longer term, or if people are changing minds?
No, never. I mean, I don't know anything about Vastu, but it's very deeply rooted in our culture. I don't understand the logic of it. But who am I to question anyone's beliefs? And but it's weird. I thought with land I would have escaped this whole Vastu thing, but they'd be like, nay.
Yeah, that's why we're asking: is does it happen with land?
It happens in land, and there's like specific rules around certain Gaumukhi plot, and like the width of it when you enter and the width of it when you exit, and where the sun sets from, and where the gate should be, and where the boring water well should be. There's a lot of these.
So does this hamper business sometimes? Like, do people actually reject a lot of places? Because
hasn't happened to us.
Okay.
And if we lose a deal, we lose a deal to it. And I can't help something. We try and be as data driven in our approach. This is an extremely emotional kind of thought. Thankfully, because it's land, maybe we've been able to escape a lot of it. I think with a home, it's probably 20x.
It is.
We've been lucky with it so far, I guess.
We hope you stay lucky with it. So when it comes to like today's day and age, we cannot talk about anything, excluding tech. That's what we believe. We want to make it easier for the consumer. How beneficial tech is for real estate. Like now you just previously mentioned there are brokers showing their properties on Instagram. There are reels going out, people are generating leads. So do you think in the longer run it's going to stay and it's going to go more massive out there, like social media and technology are going to like really help businesses to get leads or attract customers?
Okay, so I guess two parts to your question. One is how is tech going to impact real estate now and in the future? And second is how does that help sales as well? So I think technology is like, Google is a technology company. Is like, would you consider Uber a technology company? Would you? No. I mean, they are fundamentally, but they're fundamentally a technology company because they've built algorithms to optimize supply and demand, right? So that's where the technology really comes in. I think building a lot of the innovation we've seen in tech in real estate today has been around sales enablers, right? So a lot of like virtual reality stuff, or helping people sell more efficiently, or discover the journey, taking away friction in that through technology, making that happen, is where tech has been used. Is tech bringing down the cost of the product? Is tech improving the quality of the product? Maybe in certain construction processes, but I don't think we've seen any major impactful companies that have come out in the technology space in property, right? I think one thing in the future that'll be really interesting is humanoid labor, right? That's a tech play, right? Getting your house built by actual robots. Sounds crazy, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that, I think, like, that would be exciting. I think,
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot more of that.
So now that social media, like you see a lot of real estate brokers selling, houses, they're making reels, they're getting leads, sales are happening for some people. So what do you think, how impactful this is, and do you think it's actually going to be there for a long term? And is it going to drive sales like real estate with social media marketing, digital marketing, everything? So
Yeah, I mean, for sure. That's an easy one. 110%, right? It's already happening. I think people in a fairly ad-driven world need to connect. They need to find something that makes them laugh, something that creates some kind of emotion, or gives them some kind of trust when buying a product. I think also we're still to see a lot of the folks that are fairly young grow up, enter their 30s, 40s, have that real purchasing power.
Yeah.
And that's when you see like those brands and communities that have really invested, monetizing that audience, right? At least in real estate. But yeah, it's a massive space. Even for us in Brego Land, I've sold land on my DMs, which is absurd. That's crazy, right?
That's great.
It's insane. I think also what it does on social media, how to improve this, like find a way to not automate as much as you can and try and keep your conversations as human as possible. It's much harder, but you'll see your percentage conversion go up significantly. That's something that we learned ourselves. I think we were just talking about this before. You get a massive volume, and they're like, how do I deal with this? But you have to, really
like
stock up.
the human touch should remain. That's what will
That's
keep you
key,
apart from
because it's a trust product. It's a trust product. It's an envy and social proof product. I'm purchasing this to signal to the world that I've arrived in some way, shape, or form. So you need to respect that and play to that.
Yeah, social media has been a game changer then for a lot of businesses. It has. For us as well. We're very happy.
Amazing.
Okay, so like we were talking about Lodha, and you said what you like the most about them is that they're very aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So can you come on that one common trait that people have who actually make it big? Like let's say in real estate, or entrepreneurs who make it really big, that one.
Again, I think very documented, right? There's two things.
Give us 5.
You've gotta love what you do, and you've got to never give up. That's it. Those are the two inputs that you need to put into your life's work. And if you do those two things, at some point, you're going to achieve everything that you wanted to achieve. And I think for a lot of people, that it's not even necessarily, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be someone who's fulfilled in life, right? I think that's a huge downside and misconception that's happened, because when I started my career, this was 2011, 2012, there was no startup ecosystem. It was just burgeoning at the time. But India's been a hub for entrepreneurship forever. And somehow we have this habit of idolizing, folks that make it, or money becomes like a central talking point. But whatever it is in your life, right? That's, I think, where people go wrong. Those are the two things. If you just love what you do, never give up, you're fine. You'll realize now you're already successful.
So let's do a little fun rapid fire now. We got a lot of knowledge about lands and real estate. We spoke a lot. I'm very happy. I hope the audience also gets what they want from this. So let's go to the rapid fire. I know the answer of this question already, but I'm still going to throw it at you. So a house by Bandstand or a house by Marine Drive?
Bandstand. Obviously, Marine.
Newly developed residential building or old Bombay building?
Old, always.
Favorite neighborhood in Mumbai?
Anywhere near the racecourse.
Okay. So best vada pav in Mumbai?
Karjat Station.
Oh, seriously, it's the best.
Very good.
Okay. Best place to go on a drive in Mumbai now after all of these new.
Atal Setu, man.
Yeah.
It's too good.
A book you would suggest for budding real estate, entrepreneurs, like which one book that they should read?
How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, it's a people's business. We need to be a people's person to get people on board. Okay. So after a long week, which is your favorite spot to hang out and just chill in Bombay? Like it could be a cafe or a restaurant.
Chill in Bombay, at home with my wife and dogs.
Perfect. You're already living the fulfilled life.
Totally.
So lastly, what are the top 3 lessons you've learned working in this industry so far? Like, what are the takeaways that you have?
Huge opportunities. My God, every day, you come across new opportunities. Requires a lot more innovation. Requires a lot more younger people to get involved in this game. I think it's been used. It's such a high capex business that most people don't even think of entering this space. With something like real estate, right? You're never going to go out of demand.
Yeah.
There's always going to be demand. I think having a balanced view on why someone is going to buy your product or service in this space is extremely important. The trap is because there's demand in different pockets. Our country is truly massive. So we end up creating a lot more Me Too products, and because we have to get our next development off the ground or whatever it is, we cut corners. So find ways to avoid that. I think in the long run, you might make a lot less money in the first 3, 4, 5 years of your business, but you'll really establish yourself as you go along, because it's a super long-term game. The sales cycle is much longer. The trust cycle to develop is much longer. The brand to develop is much longer. Yeah.
Okay. So that was it. It was very, very insightful. We got to know a lot about land.
Yeah, for sure.
Buildings are built where we sell them. But that was great. And
Thanks for having me. And
thank you for staying till the end of the show. I'm sure you loved it as much as we loved it. So please show us support and subscribe our channel for more such beautiful episodes coming up.